This is the recording for the personal progress check for Unit 1, Spring 2020. This may hold true for other years, but right now we know for sure spring of 2021. I'm sorry, spring of 2021. I'm going to go through each one of these questions, stop, rewind, fast forward as needed to find the questions that you need help with. Number 1 says if the price of an apple is 50 cents, the marginal utility per dollar spent for the fifth apple is. So all you're doing is you're just plugging in the numbers. The margin utility, you first have to calculate the margin utilities. Remember, margin utility is the change in total utilities. So for the fifth apple, it's 250 minus 220. I've got it written right over here. 250 minus 250 minus 220 is 30. So that's the margin utility, which is the top number. It costs 50 cents. So 30 over 0.5 is you just multiply times 2, and the answer is 60. For number 2, they give you the same chart here, and they want you to calculate, or they tell you that the margin utility per dollar spent on the last orange is 75. So in other words, you're getting a margin utility per dollar for oranges over here on the left of 75. So you'll buy oranges as long as the margin utility of oranges, margin utility per dollar of oranges is greater than margin utility per dollar of apples. So what you have to do is you have to go in and calculate up here. You have to calculate the marginal utility of all the apples, and you don't know number 2 because we didn't start at number 1. We started with number 2, so we don't know the margin utility for the second unit. But then the third one is just 180 minus 130. The fourth one is 220 minus 180. The fifth one is 250 minus 220, and so on and so forth. Then the margin utility per dollar, you just divide by the dollar amount. And so you end up getting 100, 80, 60, and 40. So you're definitely going to buy the third apple. Why buy the third apple? Because its margin utility of 100 over here in green, its margin utility of 100, margin utility per dollar, I'm sorry, of 100 is greater than margin utility per dollar of oranges, which they gave you as 75 back here. So you buy the third one, you buy the fourth one, but you do not buy the fifth apple because the margin utility per dollar of apples for the fifth apple is 60. Margin utility per dollar of the oranges is 75. So at that point, you would then buy oranges. So the answer is you would buy 4 apples. Tough question. It's one of the tougher ones on the test. And then the next one is real simple. They're going to ask something like this. It shows up almost every test, every AP exam. Scarcity. Scarcity is the fundamental problem of all economics. Okay, if they're not fully employed, that's just because you're not producing enough. You got workers that are unemployed. This one here, don't worry about it. Okay, they say the answer is airplanes. I could argue that flour is a factor of production used to make bread. Food is a factor of production in making workers work harder. Don't worry about this if you miss this one. Okay, number 5. The thing here is, what does non-rival mean? Non-rival means that we can use it at the same time. So A is wrong because if I reserve a campsite, you can't use it. B is wrong because if you grow corn, then you can't be growing soybeans at the same time. D is wrong because if I get that fish out of the ocean and eat it, you can't eat it. And timber is wrong because if I cut down that tree, then you can't use that tree either. Solar energy is the correct answer. It is non-rival because we can both enjoy the sunshine at the same time. Number 6 says a power company decides to use wind turbines to provide electricity instead of coal. Which basic question does this free market answer? And the 3 basic questions are what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom we're producing for. And when you decide to use one versus the other, you're deciding how to produce it. Okay, you're using that to produce other goods and services. So that's the input, and you're trying to decide how do I produce, not what or for whom. Number 7 says compared to a market economy and a command economy, it's basically you have just tons of command economy means tons of government involvement. If you missed this question, make sure you go back and read through all that stuff that I had on command and market economies in the notes. Same thing with this one here, which is the following economic system primarily relies on allocation of resources of good, relies on prices, and that's a free market. They could have also said a market economy or something like that. But a free market economy, again, go through those notes on this stuff that if you missed this one here. Number 9 says, because of a conflict of political instability in country Y, people are emigrating to country X. Which of the following best explains what happened to country X's production possibility curve? All right, you needed to make sure you know that right here, production possibility curves shift when there's a change in technology, a change in resources, and a change in human capital. In this case, the resource is labor. Labor is moving out of country Y and into country X, so that means that country X's production possibility curve is shifting to the right, which is the first production possibility curve. If you asked about country Y, its production possibility curve is actually shifting inward because they are losing resources. So the answer is D. Okay, it's not a point inside the curve because that would be unemployed resources. And it's not a point outside the curve because we actually have more resources to use, and therefore the production possibility curve itself actually shifted. We didn't just go to a point outside the curve. Okay, 10 is the exact same concept. It's basically, how do we get out to point F? The only way we can get out to point F is either through trade, which is not part of this problem, or through a shift of the PPC. And what shifts the PPC? Changes in technology, changes in resources, or changes in human capital. And so what we're looking for is which one? The discovery of new resources. Okay, reallocating doesn't do it for sure. Fully allocating means that you weren't doing it before, which means you were a point inside before. And then becoming a mixed economy, that's not going to necessarily change it because all societies have production possibility curves that they have to worry about. Number 11, they give you this data here, and they want to know what's happening here, which is the following is true about the production possibility curve. And the answer is that it's an increasing opportunity cost. If you look for donuts, when you go from 140 to 120, that's a change in 20 donuts. When you go from 120 to 90, that's a change of 30 donuts. When you go to 90 to 50, that's a change of 40, and so on and so forth. So you can, but yet sweet rolls remains consistent at 10. So for every 10 sweet rolls, originally you're giving up 20, then you're giving up 30, then you're giving up 40. You can see that you're giving up more donuts as you produce more sweet rolls. That's what an increasing opportunity cost is. Okay, as far as this is concerned, one thing about this, this point right here is not efficient because it's not on the production possibility curve. It's not one of these number combinations or something in between could be on those things. No, it's not on the production possibility curve. And then the same thing, E is on the curve, and even though it's way down here, if it's on the curve, it's efficient. And so it just may not be what we necessarily want. We may like some donuts, but it still is not the right answer because it is efficient. Okay, number 12, they give you this information about if nation X produces coffee at a higher opportunity cost than Y, which of the following is true? And basically all this is that Y has the comparative advantage in coffee, okay? Because you don't want X producing coffee because they have a higher opportunity cost, which means that Y has a lower opportunity cost. So you want Y producing the coffee because they can produce coffee at a lower opportunity cost. It's really just a definitional question dealing with opportunity cost. Number 13, they give you this information about alpha, and the nation of alpha can produce 3 units of X or 1 unit of Y. So for alpha here, 3 of X is equal to 1 of Y. That's saying the opportunity cost of 3 units of X is 1 unit of Y. And for beta over here, beta, their opportunity cost is 4X is equal to 2Y. Okay, so when we solve for X here, 1X divided each side by 4 is going to be a half of a Y. So if that's the case, oops, I should have solved for X up here. So that means 1X is equal to a third of a y. So if that's the case, since a third is smaller than a half, then that means alpha should produce the x, and if alpha is producing the x, that means beta should produce the y, and we can solve for y over here. We know that 1y is equal to 2x, and since 2x is smaller than 3x, then indeed they should produce the y. And when you do that, then you know that the answer is beta. Well, shoot, they only ask about absolute production. Okay, so beta can produce 4x, well, alpha can only produce 3x. So that's actually what makes that answer, because it's the absolute advantage, and the absolute advantage who can produce the most. It's definitely not, let's see, alpha has the, well, beta has the absolute advantage in y there, so that's not the answer there. Beta does not have the comparative advantage in x, they've got the comparative advantage in y. Alpha has the comparative advantage in x, not in y. And alpha has the absolute and comparative advantage in the production of y. They don't have it, the comparative advantage in the production of y, because beta does. So that's what makes A the correct answer there. So you kind of had to work through it, figure out the math to figure out comparative advantage anyways. But A is really just absolute advantage. That one's pretty straightforward there. All right, then they come in and they give you the exact same thing here. And I've really marked this one up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start over again and rewrite this, because I've really marked it up and I want to be able to make sure I kind of work through my logic here on all this. Okay, so we start off and we say that for alpha, 3x is equal to 1y, and for beta, 4x is equal to 2y. So if we solve for y, because we've already got y over on the left side on alpha, that means 1y is equal to 2x. So right now when we do terms of trade, for 1y, why 1y? Because I solved for 1y. The terms of trade are between, and it's always between, these other two numbers. So it's going to be between 2x and 3x, between 2x and 3x. Then you come in here and you look at all the ones in terms of 1 unit of y. Is a half between 2 and 3? No. Is 1.5 between 2 and 3? No. We're still looking at y here. Is 2.5 between 2 and 3? Yes, it is. There's our answer. Okay. This one is 1 unit of x for 1 unit of y. Is 1 here between 2 and 3 right here? No, it's not. Okay, so the only other one is we got to do exchanges 2 units of y for 1 of x. So we got to solve for x here. And when we solve for x, we find out that 1x is equal to a third of a y. And over here, 1x is equal to a half of a y. So we can now come down here and say for 1x, the terms of trade are between, and again, between a third and a half. Okay, between 1/3 and 1/2. Is 2 between a third and a half? And the answer is no. So the answer is C. A lot of work, but you can see there's only one answer that falls within the terms of trade. What I strongly suggest you do when you work a problem like this is to go in and write this out. Then all you got to do is look at the answer choices and mark them off like I did there. Number 15 says, cost-benefit analysis, assume rational agents do which of the following. Basically, everything we do in economics is based on the margin. Additional means marginal. Marginal benefit, marginal cost. Okay, well, actually comparing over here, having a read, marginal cost. That's the answer. You're constantly doing a marginal benefit, marginal cost analysis. You're not doing what's best for society, you're doing what's best for you. You don't only consider the cost. Okay, you don't only consider the cost, you don't only consider the gain, and you won't necessarily always make the same decision because eating another donut today might have a different marginal benefit, marginal cost analysis than eating another donut tomorrow. So you won't always make the same decision on whether or not you're going to eat another donut. All right, so this one's here is an interesting. They give you a lot of data here, and basically what you're looking at here is that Owen prefers ice cream to apple pie. Okay, and he chooses a scoop of ice cream. If he chooses ice cream, what's his opportunity cost? Apple pie. So all that stuff, and they're going to do this. They just give you a bunch of words to read. You know, the bottom line is you look, if he chooses ice cream, what's he giving up? What's his next best alternative? And that's apple pie. All right, number 17. Okay, so this one here, I think the hardest thing about questions like this is knowing what to do. But again, once you've done these, you can figure them out. Then we'll see this when you see this type of question again, you'll be able to answer it. They give you total, and we never make decisions based on total. Now, you can actually do this by doing total benefit minus total cost and find out where the biggest gain is. So you could have done it that way, but let's look at it at marginal. So what you want to do is you always want to, if you can, go where marginal benefit, well, let's do it the way they did it, go where the marginal cost is equal to the marginal benefit. So what you have to do is you have to calculate the marginal cost for each of these. For the second unit, it's 50,000 minus 20,000, which is 30,000. For the third unit, it's 80,000 minus 50,000, which is 30,000. And you calculate all your marginal costs here that I have in blue. Then you come over here and do the exact same thing for marginal benefit, and you can see that 70,000 minus 30,000 is 40, 105,000 minus 70,000 is 35. You calculate all that. And then all you do is you go through each one of them, you decide, should we do it? For the first one, since the marginal benefit, for number one, since the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost, do it. For the second playground, the marginal benefit of 40 is greater than the marginal cost of 30, do it. For the third one, marginal benefit of 35 is greater than marginal cost of 30, do it. For the fourth one, the marginal benefit of 35 is greater than the marginal cost of 30, do it. But the fifth one, don't do it. Why? Because the marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit. Now, notice we never were able to make them equal. If you can't make them equal, then you want your marginal benefit to be greater than your marginal cost. And so we stopped at 4 units, at 4 playgrounds here. That's where the marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, and it's the before marginal cost is greater than marginal benefit. Okay, number 18 says Habib has a weekly fixed income. He spends all his money on music downloads and snacks, and they tell you that the margin utility per dollar, okay, they tell you the margin utility per dollar of the last dollar spent of music over here on the right is greater than the margin utility per dollar of the last unit of margin utility per dollar of snacks. And so what do? You buy more of the one that gives you bigger and less of the other. So buy more music and less snacks. So the question I get asked about this is, what does that mean when it says has maximized his utility? That means he's done the utility maximization theory, which is the margin utility of A over price of A is equal to margin utility of B over price of B, and that makes D correct. A, B, and C are all wrong because it all says yes, he's maximized it, and E is wrong because it's opposite. You want to buy more music and less snacks. All right, so hopefully this helped. Thank you very much.